every time you have employees, there's a slew of laws that govern the labor relationships between ownership and employees, and those can range. And a lot of times you can expand upon the ones that already exist in the law with an employee contract that could go into an employee manual or handbook, and that can lay out additional rights and obligations. And then there's just depending on the state you're in, because we're in multiple states and every state has different rules. There's state level regulations, there's federal, of course, and then there's OSHA requirements for the safety and the health and safety of the operating conditions and things like that. But there's also state level regulatory materials for every state. And one of the nice things is usually when we go on site, we look to see if there's a sophisticated hotel manager that's already in place. Who's the GM there? Is there a regional GM? How's it been handled? We like to see what their level of competence is, because when you're taking over an operation, we don't have the staff to just blank slate go in and just staff it and expect it to run well. So we're also underwriting the employees. We're looking at who's running it, what level of experience they have. Are we going to keep the GM in place? Are we going to do something different? Sometimes there's up and coming people, assistant GMs who are hungry for that job, and maybe we'll take them and put them in that position. And so, but we like to see their level of sophistication and how they've run their office, their front, what they call back of house, and look at, do they have all the requirements they're supposed to have? How knowledgeable are they about the local requirements, the state requirements with HR? In fact, that brings us up to speed a little bit. Some states we know pretty well because we've been operating there for a while. But yeah, there's a checklist. There's standard checklists that employees will often get directly from the state, that you can go through the checklist, signs, warnings, things that disclosures have to be posted, things that have to be done with payroll department, things like that. One of the really nice things about working with Marriott and Hilton, for example, is they have tremendous training programs, right? Like, for instance, a couple of years ago, I went through the Marriott Excellence Program for hotel ownership and management. But you can make that available to all your key employees. So your GMs, your assistant GMs, and there's even little modules. Like if you have a night auditor who does night auditors, or your sales department, they have training for that trains them on the revenue management system and the tools that Marriott has to really get into balance. They even, to the what we call the RevPAR understanding, right? The revenue per available room, trying to get that mix just right. Marriott is very invested in their hotels that are branded in their name doing well for a lot of reasons. And so these training modules are fantastic. And they go through everything from human trafficking, signs to look for, certification, how to handle guests. I mean, they're excellent. And so we usually like our key employees to sign up if they haven't done it already and they're not signed off and certified on the Marriott or Hilton training programs, to go through those training programs. From a legal standpoint, it's real simple, because almost every single one of our employer-employee relationships are what we call at-will employment, meaning they can give us notice at any time and move on. We can't keep them working for us. But likewise, we don't have to keep anyone working for us either. We can give notice. We can say, we're letting you go. And there's nothing that's unlawful or illegal about that, unless it's based on discriminatory purposes. Like, you can't fire someone because of race or sex or something else, but you can fire someone because let's say you have a training program, you're asking everyone to participate, and we're saying we're making it a condition. We want everyone to go through this training program, and someone says, I won't do it. Well, we're going to let you go because we require everyone to go through it, right? It's not hard for employment, for the owners to set the conditions upon which their employees will be trained and effective. And if someone doesn't want to do it, then they have the freedom to go somewhere else or be asked to go somewhere else. And so it's not hard to impose it lawfully, to ask them to participate in training. Employees can do that. There's nothing improper about that. And so imposing it, is fairly easy. You come up with a program, you expect everyone to go through it on a certain timeline, and you have it done. But on the insurance side, one of the things that we found about insurance, and working closely with our insurance partner, is that insurance is somewhat fungible, meaning that if you go to a certain broker, he's going to go to the same teams that are going to have a hospitality program, and you're likely to get similar rates unless you can negotiate. Well, how can you negotiate for a better rate on a particular program? And the one way that you can do that is to give them information. Insurers are driven by data, right? They take all the data that you have and they send out long questionnaires to property owners and hotel owners. And usually those people find it a chore and they fill out the basics, and those people, plug it in, and then they just spit out what the insurance rates are going to be. But once ownership understands, man, the more data I can give them, the more detailed data, the better they can do their underwriting. And you can make a convincing case that regardless of what the industry, whatever the rates are commonplace, we should do a better rate. For example, there's simple, inexpensive fixes like putting in certain types of water monitoring systems, because that's one of the biggest demands on hotel for insurance is water, flood dam. Someone leaves on a faucet, something breaks. Because think about it, you have sinks and you have toilets in every single room, way more than a house. You have a house or a building of the same size, but here you've got 10 times as much plumbing. And so having sensors that will detect immediately when there's water intrusion or there's a certain level of moisture, set off alarms and shut things off, they're fairly inexpensive to set up. But if you can set it up and demonstrate and you deliver the data to your insurance company, you can negotiate to lower those premiums, and it can have a huge upside effect on the bottom line. And so it's similar with training. If you say, this is what the industry standard is, most people go with this kind of training. We have these training modules, these 4, this 3. And so the likelihood of us having an adverse situation where someone makes a claim on insurance or gets injured is much lower. And so this is what insurance folks like to work with. You have to feed them the data because they can't get it themselves. And so being proactive, spending a little dollars now to come up with better systems, better warning systems, better training, and you can make the bottom line, the NOI, right? The net operating income can be tremendously boosted, which overall, boosts the market value of the property. There's a lot of lawsuits out there. In fact, lawyers, plaintiffs' lawyers, right? They look for, what are good cases to sink their time and resources into. And there's an annual, actually several times a year, there's a number of big conferences. I get the invites all the time called like Mass Torts Made Perfect, where big tort lawyers get together and they talk about whether it's pharmaceuticals or whatever the big thing is. And one of the big ones, there's been some huge verdicts, have been sex trafficking cases against Marriott or against Hilton, because it's a big deal. Sex trafficking and other types of trafficking, human trafficking in general, is a big deal, and hotels are often used as a place for this. And it's covered by insurance, right? Because it's not the bad acts of the hotel itself; these are third parties that are doing things, but it's the negligence of the hotel operations that can lead to successful lawsuits. And so, if you're having an extra training module, like again, Marriott offers it. And there's additional materials out there. But if you're training your staff and you have some really tight training that you can show the insurance company, we are highly attuned to, and we've trained them to see any of the signs. There's like these 12 signs of potential human trafficking.